For this video, I'm going to demonstrate the range of motion measurements for the shoulder evaluation. So I'm going to start with the patient supine on the table, and I'm going to ask him to scoot slightly off to the side, so his arm is kind of hanging up. Good. So the first measurement I'm going to take is shoulder flexion. So go ahead and leave it on the table here for me. Good. So I'm going to put the fulcrum basically right at the center of the deltoid. The stationary arm is just going to be pointed directly parallel with the table. You can also have it pointing up towards the sky. Either one is technically correct, but I think it's easiest just to keep it parallel with the table. And then the moving arm is going to be directly in line with the radius. So I'm going to ask the patient to bring his arm all the way up as far as he can go. Keep going all the way. Good. Is that all you got? Good. And then relax. So that would be for shoulder flexion. For shoulder extension, I'm just going to keep him in the same position. You could technically have the patient prone if need be, but I think it's just easier to keep him in this position. I'm going to ask the patient to drop his arm back, so back below the table as far as he can go. I'm going to keep the goniometer in the same position, so the fulcrum will just be directly in line with the center of the deltoid, and then he's going to drop his arm backwards. So go ahead and move back. Stop. Great, go ahead and relax. Next we have shoulder abduction. So he's going to bring his arm all the way out and to the side. I'm going to put the fulcrum basically right along the acromion. I'm going to keep the stationary arm directly in line with the torso, or I could keep it up towards me. Either one is correct. And then the moving arm is just going to, again, follow the radius. So can you bring your arm all the way up as far as you can go? Keep going. Good, stop. And then if it was post-surgical, you could technically also measure a deduction, so how closely they can get to midline. Lastly, we have shoulder internal and external rotation. So the patient is going to bend his arm and hold it in this position here. I'm going to put the fulcrum directly in line with the olecranon process. The stationary arm is just going to be pointing straight up towards the sky, and the moving arm is going to follow the ulna. I'm going to ask the patient to bring his hand downward, so that's shoulder internal rotation. The one thing I want to make sure that he's not doing is bringing his humerus off the table. So if he does start to come off the table, then I know that that's past his true range of motion. So go ahead and bring your hand down towards the side. Good. Stop. So that's his maximum. And then go back to neutral. Same thing for external rotation. I'm just going to follow the ulna, and I want you to bring your arm in as far back as you can. Great. Good. And relax. So that's all that I will ask you to measure for active range of motion. For passive, I'm just going to keep him in this position. I'm going to stabilize the humerus, bring him up into shoulder flexion. From here, I can bring him down into shoulder extension. We've got shoulder abduction, shoulder adduction. We could also do internal and external rotation. So that's internal and external. You could also use your hip and stabilize the elbow while stabilizing the humerus. So this is true internal rotation. For external rotation, I'm just going to switch my hip, stabilizing the humerus here. Lastly, we have horizontal adduction. So remember, AD is going towards the midline. Horizontal means just going directly across the body. So for passive range of motion, he's just going to totally relax. I'm going to bring him across his body for horizontal adduction. For horizontal abduction, that's away from midline, I'm going to bring him out and across. Go ahead and relax. So those are all of the active and passive ranges of motion. Next, I'm going to show how I would demonstrate resisted range of motion. So for flexion, I'm going to have him at neutral, which will be right at his side. I'm going to stabilize his humerus, and I'm going to ask him to bring his arm all the way up as far as he can go and resist him throughout that entire motion. Good, all the way. Keep going. Keep going. Great. Next, we're going to go into resisted extension. So I want you to push down in my hand, go all the way through. Good. You could also have him prone. So if he was laying on his belly, and then he would just raise back up towards the sky. From here, we can do resisted abduction. So I want you to push out against my hand, stabilizing the humerus, all the way up. Up, up, up. Great. Now we're going to switch, go towards your body. This is just regular adduction. Good. From here, I'll demonstrate resisted horizontal adduction. So I want you to hold this position here, and I want you to come across your body. All the way. Good. And then from here, I want you to go all the way up. This is horizontal abduction. All the way. Good. So just taking him through that full range of motion. Lastly, we have resisted internal and external rotation. So I'm going to switch my body. So right now he's in maximal external rotation. So I want to bring him through the full internal range of motion. So I'm going to start here. Let's see, maybe easiest, we go like this. Okay, so if this is his maximal external rotation, I'm just keeping the humerus directly in line with the glenoid fossa, and I want him to go through this full, almost like a throwing motion. So go ahead and pull down. Good, all the way. Good, so that's resisted internal rotation. If I wanted to do resisted external rotation, I'm going to put him in maximum internal rotation, and I want him to push against my hand all the way through. Good, and relax. Again, just making sure that the humerus is directly in line with the glenoid fossa.